Join me today as we speculate on what would happen exactly if LEGO were to lose the Star Wars license. This is the Geek Cabal channel. My name is Bobby, and today we're going to speculate a little bit on what if LEGO were to lose the Star Wars license. Now, I want to be crystal clear, this is just me speculating. I have no reason to believe this is going to happen. But one of my other recent videos was talking about, did Lego see the disaster that was the Acolyte coming and choose not to make sets, or what exactly happened there? And a lot of the comments seem to indicate that, people, and I put myself in this position too, believe that Lego's ultimately probably going to retract and mainly focus on the six Lucasfilms and probably the Clone Wars, maybe Rebels, and the Mandalorian seems to be the main thing from the current Disney shows and movies that actually moves the needle on anything. So, part of that speculation would be, well, is that enough to keep things going? And if not, what happens if it's not? Um, I think that for our hypothetical here, I think that the reason Lego would lose the license or not renew it isn't super relevant to what happens afterwards for Lego. It probably would be for other companies, and so we'll get into that once we get past the what happens with Lego. So I think part of the immediate fallout is that Lego will stop piddling around with having space be part of city and make it back into its own theme if they think they can sustain it. And I think it'll go back to, the various factions like we used to have back in the 80s and 90s, where we had like Blacktron, Mtron, Futuron, Space Police, the classic Spaceman era. I think we'll go back to something akin to that. I don't know if it'll be those exact factions. I think it will for nostalgia. We'll see those factions show up like we have in the collectible minifigures. But I think they'll also try to put a different spin on it. Like the current space sets are just called space, but they're branching out of city. But unlike the previous attempts at that, the current one looks more like an actual line and not just, oh, this is basically current NASA with like some liberties taken. These sets are a lot closer to older space sets. There's definitely like a color coded theme to the uniforms. The things are a little more sci-fi looking. These are the kind of sets that in the past would have been just, they would have had a name. I don't know what it would be. Maybe this is like the updated version of Futuron, and it would just be part of the space line. And you can see that Lego is at least considering that kind of branding right now, because these all have a big space logo on them, even though they're part of City. But we also see that it's part of a broader push across the current lines. Like there's Technic sets that have this, Creator sets, Friends sets. So it is part of a larger push. But I think we would see it more localized into its own theme again. I think that would be the biggest change. But then we might also see them go harder into the other licenses. Excuse me. Harder into the other licenses. For instance, Harry Potter is making a comeback at the moment, and I'm honestly not entirely certain what's driving that, because I don't think there's any movies coming out or anything, but the sets seem to be selling because they keep making them. Um, and while Harry Potter and the occasional big Lord of the Rings sets are going, I don't think we would see a return of Castle, but we might see more than a dipping their toes in the water that we see right now, because Lego might decide that maybe they've been too dependent on the licenses and try to get their own brands going again. I say going again, like, I mean, Ninjago's been going for quite a while, and it had a movie in the theaters, like, it's a thing. Uh, let's see now. Then of course they have like Sonic the Hedgehog and Marvel and DC. So they have other licenses that they can fall back on if they still feel that's in their best interest. And there's always other licenses to explore. Like they could always, I suppose, they could always attempt to pursue the Star Trek license, but I don't know with the current state of the Trek shows if that's the greatest idea in the world. They could stick with classic Trek, the Next Generation of the movies, I suppose. But you've got kind of a limited audience there because Trek has always been the much smaller property compared to Star Wars. Now they could go for a bundle of sci-fi things, and which could include Star Trek, but also include things like 2001: A Space Odyssey, Battlestar Galactica, maybe. Just like a bundle of sci-fi kind of spacey themed franchises, and just kind of go with those. I doubt they'd ever go for anything like Alien or Predator because they're all R-rated entries in the franchises. Same reason we won't ever see like a Conan set for Castle or anything. But like I said, I think the most immediate thing will be the return of Lego Space. Then the rest is going to depend on how exactly things go down. Is it a case of Disney just asks for too much money and Lego just sees diminishing returns with things like the Acolyte, where they're just like, well, I mean, guys, your latest attempts suck. Like, we can't sell sets based on this. We really can only push your older material. In which case, maybe they don't consider it worth it, or Disney asks for too much money. Now, in that event, who does Disney turn to? Because if Lego can't afford it, I'm relatively certain Mega Bloks sure as the hell can't. Maybe I don't think the knockoff companies on places like Temu and Amazon can afford it because, Lego's the largest toy company in the world. If they can't afford it, who can? And that becomes the problem for Star Wars. Excuse me. Now, if it's a case of Lego themselves just see diminishing returns, and it's not a matter of Disney asking for too much, but it's Lego coming to them saying, hey guys, like, this isn't working at this price, we need to renegotiate downward. Now there, maybe some other company has the money. I still doubt it, but it's possible. And there's also the possibility of trying to repair the relationship once Disney realizes there are no other takers, and it's better to get some money than no money. And Lego will probably realize they have a strong position and try to push for it to be even lower licensing fee, at least for a while. And Disney might not have any choice but to relent and go along with it. In which case, the space renaissance will probably be short-lived. Or maybe they won't make the same mistake, and they'll be like, well, we're going to bring back Star Wars, but we've seen that our own brands need attention as well. So while space might not be a perennial brand like it used to be, it might be we'll bring this out every 2 or 3 years kind of brand. So, that would be one way to go. But for me, like I said, I don't think it's likely to happen anytime soon, because I think at some point something is going to change at Disney, and even if it's just Kathleen Kennedy aging out and retiring, someone's going to produce a worthwhile product for Star Wars again, and we'll have some things to base sets around. I mean, we can keep going with the original trilogy, the prequels, and Clone Wars for years. You know, like you can always re-release sets, and it seems like people don't mind as long as they're spaced out enough. Like the TIE bomber that came out last year. That's the first TIE bomber in at least 10 years, and I believe it's only the second TIE bomber to ever be released. Now I know the TIE bomber isn't the most impressive looking ship, but given how many times they've re-released the TIE fighter, you'd think they'd realize that the variants also have value. So, given the fact it took so long to re-release the TIE bomber, I don't know what Lego was doing there. And the TIE interceptor, same thing. It's been years since there was a TIE interceptor. And here we have one in a set with another ship, which artificially jacks up the price. So there's room to just release just the TIE interceptor on its own. And that's where you go into the old EU, which they still do, and get something like the TIE Advanced. And I don't mean Vader's TIE fighter. His is the TIE Advanced X1, if I recall correctly. I mean the TIE Advanced, the mass production version, which looks different. It looks similar to Vader's, but imagine the pointed wingtips like the Interceptor, but not nearly as elongated. But they're on the front and the back of the wings, because it incorporates things from both designs. Because it has the laser cannon, I believe it has laser cannons on the tips, like the Interceptor. I could be wrong on that, but I believe it does. But it also has shielding, a hyperdrive, and I believe capacity for missiles or bombs. So, and I'm fairly certain it's never had a Lego set. The TIE Defender has one set, and it's awesome. Then for the Rebels, it's been quite a while since we've seen the B Wing. We could probably do for another A Wing. The X Wing is a perennial favorite. And then the Y Wing, which actually has two versions, and I think the Clone Wars era version has only ever gotten one set. So just with the core fighters, you can periodically re-release those. You could always re-release the TIE Crawler. There's the ground vehicles. You can always upscale and downscale vehicles. You can always have simple versions that are cheap, and then you can have detailed, more expensive versions. You can go for the, hey, this one's actually to scale with the figures, but you could probably do that with the TIE Fighter and the X-Wing. They'll be gigantic, but you could do it. Then, like I said, then there's ground vehicles. There's battle packs from now till the end of eternity. You just cycle through. One year you do stormtroopers and rebels. The next year you do clones and battle droids. The next year you do, you just alternate if you want to. Then occasionally mix it up. Throw in some Mandalorian battle packs. Throw in your different Imperials, your different kinds of rebels. They don't all have to be like troopers on the blockade runner. They could be guys more like from Rogue One. Throw in your vehicle operator battle packs. So you get some TIE fighter pilots, ATST and AT-AT drivers. For the rebels, the different pilots do look different for the different fighters. Just things like that. For the battle packs, you've got those, like I said, from now to the end of eternity. And the clones are the easiest ones. This year it's the 501st for Vader. Next year it's Obi-Wan's group, and next year it's Ahsoka's group, and next year it's Mace Windu's group, and next year it's Ki-Adi-Mundi's guys, and and then cycle through those. Not a problem. You have the Jedi Starfighters with various Jedi Masters. Take you a long time to cycle through all those. I suppose you could even do like vehicles painted up for the various clone units. So you could do basically the same vehicle over and over again, just with different accents. And of course, you have the Separatists. You have different battle droid paint jobs. You have some other member races like the Umbarans. So you've got a lot of material to work with just from those, and you still got play sets and other things again that you can scale up and down. Like we have a big UCS sandcrawler, we have a not so UCS sandcrawler. We could have an even cheaper version of the sandcrawler, and then years and years down the road, do another UCS one if you really feel like it. And you could keep going through that cycle for quite a while. And I mean, you're going to see declining sales eventually because people are going to eventually have their no, this version's good enough for me. Like with the TIE fighters, I have the versions I like, and I don't remember if they're the ones from Rogue One or if they're from just before or after that, but they're a lot better than the last few I've seen. They've got the far larger wings like they're supposed to have. Um, yeah, like they're just better built than some of the previous ones before that and the ones that have come after. So I'm content with the TIE fighters I have, unless they actually make like one to scale. Then I'd consider buying that. But I don't need more TIE fighters, me personally. But there's other people out there that I'm sure in the last few years have started buying things. I'm like, these TIE fighters, yeah, they're okay, but I'd rather have one, that's bigger like it's supposed to be. And so, inevitably Lego will make a closer to scale one again. So, and there's other things they've just never made, like the assault gunboat and the missile boat from Tie Fighter. I think there's only one version of the E-wing. I don't know if they've ever made the Z95 Headhunter, and if they have, it's been long enough they could probably make another one. Unless I'm totally forgetting one in the last 2 years. So those are, just two fighters that are just kind of out there that we never see. I don't think they made Moff Gideon's TIE fighter. But if they didn't, there's one to have the collapsible wings so it can land down on the ground. I mean, there's things to be done without even having to contemplate touching most of the other stuff if Lego wants to retract inward. So, I think it'll be years, unless Disney gets super greedy, it'll be years before the license is even, before it's even a debate. But in my mind, if it happens sometime in the near future, like I said, I think the main fallout is going to be that Lego Space comes back into fashion, and Lego has to decide: do they lean more into the other licenses they have, or do they start to try to wean themselves off and try to bring back their other brands like Castle, and maybe Pirates? You never know. So anyway, that's just my ramblings on the topic. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like I said, I don't find it likely, but it's something to consider. You know, I think my outlook is probably kind of simplistic. I think there's potential other scenarios where things just go wildly in some weird direction. But I think Lego as a company is a little conservative for that to happen, as far as choices they make, not necessarily like on a political level. I don't think Lego takes a ton of risks, so at least it doesn't appear they do to me. Like the Dreams sets, I would have considered those really risky, but they're already into another wave of them and everything, and I think they've got a show based on it. So, I mean, seems to work out. I only have one of the sets, the Turtle Van, because I just thought it was so absurd, and I got it on clearance. So, but anyway, like I said, that's just my 2 cents. Let me know down in the comments what you folks think. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. You know how this all works here on YouTube. Comments and sharing are the things that help us actually grow the channel if you are so inclined to do so, and we always appreciate that. But otherwise, that's all I've got. So in the meantime, you folks keep on bricking. Okay, let's go with that. Keep on bricking.